Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and this is going to be episode 4 of our series looking at the greatest horror characters throughout the decades. Episode 4 brings us to the big one, the 1980s. This list was easy in a sense because there are so many great characters from the 1980s, but at the same time very difficult because there are so many great characters from the 1980s. I'm sure I've left off some of your favourites on this one. It was a difficult one to do, but I've had fun doing it. So let's have a look at the greatest decade that there was, the 1980s. Get straight to it. In at number 10, we have Nancy Thompson, played by Heather Langenkamp from A Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984. My favourite final girl. I love Nancy. She has the typical sweet, responsible character traits that the final girl usually has, but she's got a mean streak and she's got a fighting spirit, as you would need facing Freddy Krueger in the first Nightmare film. I also find her to be a very organic character. I don't feel like she's been put in the film just to be the final girl, and I really like the booby traps and the things that she sets up to bring Freddy down towards the end of the film. And Heather Langenkamp herself seems like a really nice woman, seems pretty sweet. So yeah, Nancy Thompson, very well put together character, one that I've always rooted for, and as I say, my favourite final girl. So in at number 10, we have Nancy Thompson from A Nightmare on Elm Street. In at number 9, we have Chucky, voiced by and kind of played by Brad Dourif in Child's Play from 1988. And you have to kind of take a step back and forget the cultural icon that Chucky has now become. But the original idea of this seemingly cute and adorable kid's doll being possessed by a murderer and going around killing people was a really unsettling and scary idea. And I remember seeing Chucky's face back in the day as a kid and being really unnerved by this horrible looking doll. And boy did they give Andy a hard time in this film. To say just a little kid, he gets put through it by this killer doll. It's also endlessly entertaining to hear Brad Dourif's foul-mouthed rants as this killer doll goes round insulting people as much as he does kill people off. So that's a lot of fun as well. And I've always kind of found Chucky to be somewhat fortunate to have become the horror icon that he is, because I've always struggled to imagine how this tiny little doll could kill so many full-grown people over the course of how many films it is now. But with credit to the character, he's managed to do it, and he's managed to become etched into the horror genre. So for such a small guy, that's an impressive feat. And as I say, he's very much an iconic horror character in this day and age. So in at number 9, we have Chucky from Child's Play. In at number 8, we have Hudson, played by Bill Paxton in Aliens from 1986. I love anything with Bill Paxton in it, and this may be his best character. Hudson is the cocky, obnoxious frat boy of the Corporal Marines. Very entertaining to watch. And then of course when the alien terror starts to begin, he just immediately folds and can't handle it and just starts doom prophesizing throughout the rest of the movie. But I always thought that was a really effective way of driving the tone of the movie on and shifting it from the kind of action elements to the horror elements of the Alien franchise. We go from being with the Corporal Marines and trusting their kind of macho approach to realising that we are kind of out of our depth and the aliens are even more advanced, and it's all kind of told through the character shift of Hudson. It's really well done. And then of course he does have his moment of valour towards the end of the movie where he takes on the aliens and blasts as many of them as he can before being pulled through the floor and becoming alien fodder. It's such a shame. I'm rooting for Hudson every single time that scene is on, and every time I'm hoping that he'll survive, but unfortunately he does go down fighting. But yeah, Hudson is such an entertaining character Funnily enough as well, he comments on every single one of my YouTube videos. Check out the comment section of my videos and there will be a comment from Hudson. So thank you for that, Hudson. But yeah, in at number 8, we have Hudson from Aliens. In at number 7, we have MacReady, played by Kurt Russell in The Thing from 1982. Just such a cool character. Not a great deal to say about MacReady, but just a fantastic leader and an all-round great character. Definitely someone you want to have around if you're facing an unknown alien terror. And Kurt Russell, MacReady, his line delivery in The Thing is outstanding, and his performance in scenes like the blood test and the "I know I'm human" speech are just really powerful and very memorable scenes. And yeah, just a really cool, amazing character. So in at number 7, we have MacReady from The Thing. In at number 6, we have Pinhead, played by Doug Bradley in Hellraiser from 1987. One of the most intricately iconic horror characters from the 80s. He has such a striking look and a terrifying look as well. And I've always found Pinhead to be a fascinating character. There's an impartiality about him which is just genius and sets him apart from a lot of other horror characters. He is more of an impartial judge who is summoned and will deal with the situation accordingly, rather than an all-out horror villain, which would have been very easy to make him. And you get the sense that he's a very educated person, which again just adds to his character. He's not a slathering lunatic with pins in his head. Played beautifully by Doug Bradley with a sense of reserved composure, which again sets him apart from other horror and slasher villains. And again, what a look for Pinhead in this film. He just looks incredible. Plus his voice and his line delivery is just insanely good. Again, credit to Doug Bradley. I never appreciated Doug Bradley enough until I saw the Hellraiser films without him as Pinhead. And yeah, he just brings so much to that role. He's fantastic. And yeah, I'm still fascinated by that murky world of the Cenobites and just what they're all about and what drives Pinhead and makes him the way he is. He's just absolutely fascinating as a horror character, and not just a gross out demon with pins in his head. So in at number 6, we have Pinhead from Hellraiser. In at number 5, we have Peter Vincent, played by Roddy McDowall in Fright Night from 1985. The amalgamative creation of Peter Cushing and Vincent Price. And Peter Vincent really does kind of capture the essence of those kind of dusty old vampire killers from the 1950s and 1960s. And I absolutely adore Fright Night. I love the idea of this teenager finding out that his neighbour is a vampire. No one believes him, so he goes to a late night horror host, a fearless vampire killer, who in actuality is a complete coward. It's such a fun spin on the story. And Peter Vincent, he is cowardly, he's a little bit weedy, but really, really likeable. And even though he's kind of doing everything he can to get out of the situation, you still get a sense that this is the fearless vampire killer that will save the day and defeat the forces of evil. And Roddy McDowall plays it wonderfully. He's so good as a character. Plays it with a degree of comedy as well, which just really adds to the film. And for me, makes Fright Night, it may be the greatest popcorn horror movie ever made, largely thanks to Peter Vincent and just his quirky little ways. He's just fantastic. So in at number 5, we have Peter Vincent from Fright Night. In at number 4, and sticking with the same film, because I love it so much, in at number 4 is Jerry Dandridge, played by Chris Sarandon in Fright Night from 1985. I don't know what level of agreement I'll get from you guys, but this is probably my favourite portrayal of a vampire ever. Christopher Lee's the man, Bela Lugosi is the classic iconic vampire, but Chris Sarandon as Jerry Dandridge just has such a level of charm and charisma that is just amazing to watch. Even myself as a guy, I find a seductiveness about his vampiric ways. He's just absolutely mesmerising as this character. At times he is sinister when they sort of go with the horror aspects, and he's fantastic in that respect too. But just this kind of everyday suburban vampire, this deceptively nice, charming man. He's so convincing and so captivating to watch. It's just outstanding. My favourite portrayal of a vampire. So in at number 4, we have Jerry Dandridge from Fright Night. In at number 3, and a bit of a 2-for-1 for you here, we have the Frog Brothers, played by Corey Feldman and Jameson Newlander in The Lost Boys from 1987. I always wanted to be, and still want to be, a Frog Brother. Hanging out with those two guys in the comic book store just seems like 1980s heaven to me. And I love how they have a seriousness about them. They have this tough guy demeanour until, of course, the vampires actually start attacking. And we remember that they're just 1980s teenagers that are way out of the depth. But they're so cool. They're very quotable. I love the dinner time scene when they're trying to find out who the head vampire is. And again, they go about this business with such a degree of seriousness, yet incompetence. It's just so fun to watch. They're really cool characters that speak to me a lot. I really like them. So yeah, in at number 3, we have the Frog Brothers from The Lost Boys. In at number 2, and in my heart I think this guy is number 1, but he's been pipped slightly. But in at number 2, we have Jason Voorhees, who makes his debut in Friday the 13th in 1980. And Friday the 13th and Jason, I've always kind of looked at them as like kind of the fast food of horror. They don't do anything special. There's no particular filmmaking finesse about them. They're all pretty much the same, but they are so satisfying. And Jason just does his thing. You know what it's going to do. He's going to be going through the film, giving us one kill after another. He doesn't talk. He has very little character development, but it's Jason, and he's just so cool. And the hockey mask is just one of the most awesome and iconic things that you'll see. I do like how they change his appearance slightly. They always mess with his facial features a little bit in each of the films. There's an adaptability about Jason in that sense that I find quite appealing. But for me, he is just like the ultimate slasher villain character, and you can't have 1980s horror without Jason Voorhees. So in at number 2, we have Jason Voorhees. And in at number 1, the greatest horror character of the 1980s is Freddy Krueger. So as I just said, I'm very much a Jason guy, but I don't feel any kind of horror character permeated into mainstream culture the way that Freddy Krueger did. I mean, first of all, he's a fantastic character in a great movie. A razor glove killer that stalks you in your dreams is just horror movie gold right there. But then throw in the added character and charisma and one-liners that he adapted over the course of the Nightmare sequels throughout the 80s. And he really kind of developed this sort of MTV style personality, which the likes of kind of Jason and Michael Myers and people like that weren't able to do. And Freddy Krueger just shot onto the scene, and you would see him in like TV adverts, talk shows. They even made children's toys of his glove and action figures and things like that, which is crazy to think that this character is a child murderer, and here he was breezing around in popular culture with everyone thinking he's so cool. But yeah, Freddy Krueger, he is just a great horror character. Amazing look with his burnt face and his dirty little sweater and things like that. Amazing performance from Robert Englund. And he's a character where I even hear like non-horror and non-movie fans reference things like, oh, you'll look like Freddy Krueger, or Freddy Krueger will come and get you. He's just that well known of a name and a character. So yeah, in at number 1, the greatest horror character of the 1980s is Freddy Krueger. So there we go, guys. That is my top 10 best horror characters of the 1980s. Let me know what you thought about that. If you disagree, let me know what your top 10 would be. It'd be really interesting to know for this decade. Next up, we go into the 1990s, which has got some seriously cool characters in it. So definitely stick around for that one. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.